All right, let's say you want to get into helicopters and you're maybe thinking about getting a premium. I'm going to be entirely honest. You don't need a premium helicopter, but if you do want them, they are pretty helpful. I have played both the Greek Apache and the Comanche. I've played the German Mi-24. I've played the Ka-50. I've played both the G-LYNX and the Rooivalk. The Kisarazu, T129, Mi-28A Sweden, and this is just a Israeli Apache. It's the same thing. So, you think I'm pretty well versed in them? Yeah, I'd say so. But you know, your opinion is your opinion. So, let's go over them. First, we'll start off with the Greek Apache because it's right here. It is a very decent helicopter. It's the AH-64A. You can get, as you see here, 2 stingers on the wingtips, as we'll call them, and up to 16 Hellfire air-to-ground missiles. You can get a bunch of rocket pods if you don't want to use the Hellfires. You can get laser-guided rockets, and even Sidewinders. Now, a fun note about this, the Sidewinders actually work with your helmet-mounted sight, unlike stingers. So you can take the Sidewinders and get off-bore shots with them. Now, it won't really help much because they're not thrust factoring, but whatever. It's pretty maneuverable, and the Apache is very... It's kind of annoying, honestly. If there's a good person using it, you're going to have a really hard time killing them, and they're going to have a really easy time killing you. The 30 mil, a lot of people hate it because it's so weird and different, but the 30 mil is pretty much made to kill infantry, but it does have a lot of pen because of the way it works. You can strafe MBTs and kill them, but it might take a little bit. Up next, we'll go to the Comanche. It's very different, to say the least. It's very small. It has a internal bay that you can see. You can load just these, and it does make you stealthier, but we'll get into that in a moment. You can take more Hellfires, so you have 14. You can take rockets and up to 16 stingers, which can make you a crazy anti-air, especially because you get a radar. And the radar is pretty helpful because while it doesn't have IFF, you can just... It's basically just a thing that constantly searches for vehicles. So if you see one on the radar, that's just like a, hey, there's a vehicle here. But the stealth on this, it, for the time, was good, yeah. But in this game, oh my god, the stealth is like almost entirely worthless. I've tested it. It only really works against, for example, a Flarak at like 8 kilometers. So you won't be using that stealth that much. I'm gonna say this now. I don't recommend buying squadron vehicles because they're not premiums, and you're paying premium prices for not premiums. So do not waste your money on them. You can get them later. Next, we'll go to the German Hind. Now, this thing is very, very special because, well, for one, it's at like 9.7. So you're not going to be fighting modern SAMs or anything. You're going to fight at most maybe a Strela, which you can counter by just being far away. Now you can see you can get up to 8 Sturm missiles, which are very decent. They don't have a whole lot of pen. They have 560 millimeters of pen. They're heat warheads, so they can't do much against ERA. But they fly at 500 meters per second and have a 5 kilometer range. You can get a ton of rockets on this thing. You can get air-to-air missiles, but they're not too great because they have giant seeker FOVs. But what I find more fun are these gun pods right here. These are GUV 8700s. The reason they're so fun is because you can see on one of these pods there's two minigun chain guns, or whatever you want to call it, two 7.62 chain guns, and then a 50 cal chain gun in the middle. So you can get some crazy rate of fire with this thing. You get per pod 3 guns basically. It's very funny. It doesn't do a whole lot of damage because they're 7.62s and 50 cals, so you do get bombs, and that's a special thing about the Russians. Pretty much any Russian vehicle gets bombs, and it can be very funny to kill people with, but it's not too effective. The Tiger had E, definitely one I don't have, although I do, you know, I know how it plays. It's very okay because it's 11.0 and you get 8 Hellfires. Now these are AGM-114Ks, so they're tandem with more pen, and they're just better than AGM-114Bs. You get Mistrals, which everyone hates on them, but I don't know. I've never had any troubles with them. They're decent. They're slightly better stingers. Now the only thing I have bad to say about the Tiger Had E is that the TV or the camera, we'll just call it a camera, it's all the way up here. Whereas if you look at the Tech Tree Tiger in the German tree, it's all the way up here. So you can, in the Tech Tree one, you can be entirely like covered and still see targets around like a hill. So that's just a minor gripe. Now the big dog, the KA-50, definitely one of the most annoying helicopters in the game. I'm gonna be honest, straight up. This thing gets 12 Vikir missiles. Now, what's special about these is that, for one, they're beam riding and not laser guided. Even though beam riding means the same thing as laser guided, they don't set off laser warning. At least they haven't, as far as I've looked at in the past. Now they have a 10-kilometer range, but it's a guaranteed range of 8. And I think that just means if you have perfect conditions, you will hit 10 kilometers. But majority of the time, you're going to hit 8. 600 meters per second, tandem heat, 800 millimeters of pen. But what's even more annoying is that the Vikir missiles have proximity fuse. So you can use them as anti-air missiles. So you basically get 12 anti-air missiles if the target's flying properly. Like I said, you get bombs because it's a Russian helicopter. You get a bunch of rockets if that's your thing. I wouldn't really take the gun pods because they can't move, unlike your 30 mil that can. And the 30 mil is broken. It's the same gun as the BMP-2M or BMP-2. So you get 81 millimeters of pen, APDS, which means you have so much higher range than anything. And on this K50, it's not too great because the gun can't really move that well. Horizontal guidance of -2. So pros and cons. Mi-25P, like I said, don't really buy squadron vehicles. You could grind for them. You can get them for free, but it's just an Mi-24 or Mi-35, but with Vikirs, and that's about it. We'll go to Britain. G-LYNX, oh my god, up tier this thing, please. It does not belong at 10.7. You get 8 AGM-114Bs, or Hellfire Bs. and 4 stingers. But what's so annoying is that because this thing is 10.7, and if you get this thing in a game, you can just sit at 8 kilometers, and at that BR, no anti-air can touch you unless it's an up tier. There is a 20 mil or rocket pods, but they don't have CCIP, so you won't really. You would have to be in first person to use it. The Rooivalk basically has AGM-114Ks that are made by whoever made this, I forgot. 4 Mistrals, 76 rockets. You get the idea. The Kisarazu, I'm probably not saying that right, but whatever. It's an AH-1S, but what's so special about this thing is that it has female pilots or female operators, and they drew a little some good art on the sides. It's cool. You get a bunch of rockets. You get 7.62 miniguns, TOW 2s, which are pretty decent. However, in helicopter PvE, which I just don't really recommend playing because it's more of a waste of your time than just grinding with ground vehicles. In helicopter PvE, this thing can match Apaches, which have 8 kilometer range, but this thing has at most 3.75 kilometers of range, which is pretty annoying. Move on to the T129. I'm pretty sure this is a limited premium, meaning it's not always around. It might only come back during events. I don't remember. But you can get a very interesting setup of 8 LUMTAS missiles, which are just kind of worse Hellfires, honestly. I've had some trouble with them, I must say. And then there's these Sirit missiles. Now these are basically laser-guided rockets, so treat them as laser-guided rockets. But I mean, you could get a pretty decent setup. You can get a bunch of Sirit missiles if you want more missiles. You could get... It's alright. We'll look at the Hind. It's basically the same thing as the German one, just it's in the Italian tree. You do get S-24s, which are huge rockets, but... you know, it's the same thing. France will go look at the Tiger HAP. It's like the Tiger Had E, however, it's a lower BR with worse missiles. You get Hot 3s, which are super slow, but slightly longer range than TOW 2s. 1200 millimeters of pen, and they're tandem. They're alright, but what just makes them not great is the speed. 4 Mistrals or Stingers. You can get a bunch of rocket pods. The French Apache or Netherlands. It's the same thing as the other Apache, except it gets countermeasure pods on the sides. It's up to you if you want to use them. If you do take them, you can't bring Stingers with you. And I'm not seeing any Sidewinders, so you probably don't get those either. The Swedish Mi-28A, very decent heli. If you're playing sim, make sure to tell your teammates that you're Swedish, because you can basically just cosplay as a Russian. You get S-13OFs, which are giant HE rockets, S-8KOs, which are AP rockets. You get a ton of them. Or you can get 16 Ataka missiles, which are very decent. 6 kilometers of range, 550 meters per second. Heat, tandem heat, 800 millimeters pen. They're basically upgraded Sturms. Now, what is not great about this thing is that you don't get a radar warning. You get a radar warning receiver, but you won't get missile warnings, and it doesn't have any auto flare capabilities. So if you see a missile coming at you and you think you can flare it, you have to flare it yourself. So, you know, just if you buy this, keep in mind of that. And Israeli Apache, it's the same AH-64A, but Israeli. This is literally all you get in terms of weaponry. So after looking at, well, there's also the Chinese, but like it's mostly just copy paste. Atakas, Iglas, rockets. Z19E is the most annoying, most broken vehicle in the game. My god, nerf TY90s and all of that. Now the main reason is because you get a bunch of missiles, yeah, but these blue Arrow 9s, they're basically Hellfires, but they have 2 less kilometers of range, and they're just overall a lot worse. They're like the Temu Hellfires. But these TY90s are very annoying because they have 11 kilometers of range if you're rear aspect. IRCCM, they pull quote-unquote 20 Gs, and they're extremely hard to dodge. I'll test drive them so you can just see. Sure, we'll do that. Alright, so I'm gonna lock this MiG-15. You see it has a massive seeker for a IRCCM missile. Not a whole lot of range when it comes to all aspect, but you'll see, like, I'll send it that. It does some crazy pull for that and still hits. So where's the other one? There it is. Now, if the plane's flying towards you, you're not gonna get too much extra range on it. But even then, as soon as you get a lock, that plane is pretty much dead. Unless the missile just can't turn hard enough in time. Which 9 times out of 10 it can. I've seen the TY90 do like straight up 90-degree turns. Now, a thing to note about like literally all of these premiums is that all of them have great thermals. So besides the Heinz, but those are like 2 BRs lower, so I don't think you have to worry about that. Yeah, pretty much every premium except the KA50, the Mi-24Ps, and let's see, and the Mi-28A all have great thermals, and you can make good use of these premiums, the premium helicopters, but they're definitely not required, because at the right here at the bottom, if you turn on this setting, you can use any tank, and then any RP you get using that tank gets put into a helicopter instead. So you don't even have to play helicopters to grind helicopters. So there's not really a point to buying a premium that you don't need. But if you do want to make a super broken lineup, like my top tier lineup, pretty much full of spamming everything I have, but you know, I've grinded it all. I want to be able to play it. My top tier Russia lineup is busted, and yeah, that's about it.